Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the UDS webinar today, Process to Profit. I appreciate everybody joining us. Paul will not be joining me today. He's traveling, but I think I can handle it on my own. Anyway, it's an interesting topic we're going to be covering today, process. We all know how important process can be, and I just want to kind of go through some ideas and share some things that hopefully you'll find useful. You know, I recently had somebody ask me what makes a great F&I manager. You know, my standard response is, they have to be a pretty dynamic person. They have to be skilled. They have to know what they're doing. They have to be ambitious, focused, confident, enthusiastic, competitive, determined. They have to be detail-oriented, maybe a teacher, trainer, coach, and then finally probably they need to be a leader. And I kind of want to talk today, if your performance is a little flat or maybe it's not trending in the right direction, there may be something missing that's holding you back from improving in F&I, and that goes beyond the quality of your experience or your talent. And, training's important, but in F&I it's only really one part of the equation. What really makes a great F&I manager is a combination of maybe some of the things I just mentioned, along with, continual training and development. But what we're going to be talking about today, what really can make them great is discipline to sound and proven processes. Now, the right process in F&I believe, can make the good, the average good and the good great. So, our industry is and always been, has been process driven. And if history is a teacher, it teaches us that in retail vehicle sales, we're certainly better off when we follow a process. So sometimes in sales, a lot of times in sales, but sometimes in F&I, the process breaks down, and the process that's documented in and I'm using air quotations here, our dealership process manual, sometimes isn't being followed with the customer, or sometimes not internally with our fellow managers. So, evaluating the integrity of your processes is a good idea. Now, to do this evaluation, it requires an objective, honest answer to a few questions, and here they are. Are you following your process in F&I, or maybe has a new one taken its place? Is the new F&I process as compliant as the one that's documented in that policy manual? Does it have the same customer focus? Maybe is it as efficient? And finally, is it providing you the results that proven process can be shown to produce if followed? If the answer is no to any one of those questions, first of all, you're not alone. But usually the root cause of a declining F&I performance trend is a breakdown in the F&I process. So when evaluating your F&I processes, there's 4 areas that I want to consider and that we're going to talk about today. And they are daily routines, customer interaction, your administrative process, and professional development. So let's dig right in with daily routines. I think I heard it the first time in a class by Joe Verdi, and that's back when he was a lot younger. And he used to say, come to work to work. And, daily routines can be positive or they can be negative. And as an F&I manager, I want to ensure that your daily routine is positive. So showing up late for work and having breakfast at your desk probably isn't a positive first step to a daily routine. So let's talk about maybe what could be. Coming to work early and entering the dealership through the service department is a really good idea. I recently read that on average now, if your service department is processing 8 times the amount of their RO count is 8 times your sales. So you can do the math on your store, but what that tells us is there's an awful lot of opportunity in the service department that we might be walking around or forgetting about. And maybe showing up in the service department every day is making that part of your routine, and saying hello to what the service advisors, finding out who's coming in on an appointment, doing a little research, and maybe get a little bit of a service lane program going wouldn't be a bad way to start your daily routine. Participating in a daily Save a Deal meeting or CIT meetings, I prefer the Save a Deal, really helps kind of control contracts in transit, because by understanding what happened yesterday, what we're doing today, assigning tasks, prioritizing what needs to be done, a lot of times it can help keep those CITs from happening. Also keeps you informed and you know what's going on every day. Maybe we want to make sure that part of our daily routine is tracking all of our activities, tracking our results, keeping a solid log, and making sure that all our deals are closed out as quickly and efficiently as possible and up into accounting where they can be cashed. Participating in sales meetings, it's something we talk about quite a bit. Is as an F&I manager, you have to deal with a lot of other people in the dealership. You're subject to what they do. I had a group of F&I managers in yesterday, and I heard some of the usual complaints about how deals come into the office, how the sales managers aren't as skilled and maybe as talented as they once were. And, some of the things that came up are all things that, we shouldn't have to control or shouldn't have to deal with, but they're not going to fix themselves. And if you want to maybe not put up with those types of things, get involved in those sales meetings. Start teaching process to the salespeople. Make that part of your daily routine, is to be involved and checking in with the sales staff and assigning them tasks on maybe those steps that they're supposed to be getting and things like that. Check in with the sales manager. Find out what the appointments are for the day. See where you might be able to help if they're going to need a TO or make yourself available. And then finally, I have down here accounting check-in. It's an interesting dialogue. You have a reputation with your accounting department in your dealerships. And they think that either you're solid and tight, know what you're doing, or they might also think that maybe that might not be the case. But checking in with accounting is always a good idea, because they'll give you some honest feedback on what you might be able to do from an administrative perspective on your deals. Work on any callbacks, of course, in all your working deals, and prioritize those and make sure that you're organized with those. Here's one that's kind of an interesting one that I'm seeing more and more of a need for, which is walking the inventory and understanding your inventory a little bit better as an F&I manager. Take a look at some of those vehicles in there. Look for the ones that book out halfway decent and create that switch list, so that when you have that customer that they've allowed the customer to structure the deal, they're on the wrong car, there's no front end gross and absolutely no opportunity for a back end, because the call is limiting everything. Maybe there's an idea there that you could suggest to switch to another vehicle, create some front gross, and more importantly, create an opportunity for you. And then lastly, a good part of a daily routine would be to check your supplies in your office, check the look of your office. Is it neat, organized, clean, and ready to go? Are you ready to get that first customer? It's interesting. F&I people who excel in the administrative area of the business, they have some things that they do. They utilize e-contracting whenever they get a chance. They make sure that all their deals are processed quickly and accurately. They limit errors, maximize cash flow, and by doing that, decrease chargebacks. Let's talk about professional development. Customer interaction. Customer interaction is an interesting spot. And what that means is, we're really talking about the F&I process here, and we're talking about customer interview and consultation, menu creation, and the presentation of the menu, answering any customer concerns or objections, making sure all the documents are fulfilled, and then also that the deal gets funded. A breakdown in this sequence anywhere is a tough thing, and it really cascades from there. And unfortunately, the breakdown that I see that occurs quite often is in step one of the F&I process, which is the customer interview and the consultation. And then things kind of start getting out of control from there in a way. The customer interview and the consultation is really the foundation of a great F&I performer, and yet it seems to be the most common place the F&I process breaks down. I don't know, the importance of the exchange of information, the building of rapport and trust, and the discovery of needs that takes place in this step of the process really can't be overemphasized, but I'm going to try to overemphasize it. You know, we teach a preferred option, and the preferred option is based on customers' needs and being able to take the benefits of our products and apply them to those customers' needs and solve those customers' problems with our products. And we just can't do that effectively if we don't take the time to have a customer interview. You know, the just bring them in mentality really severely limits your opportunity. You know, I've never seen a process manual for F&I that says, you know, the customer interview is optional and should only be done when you feel like it or when you're loading a deal. And, you know, for those of you who are loading while you're trying to build rapport, credibility, and trust with your customers, I'm just going to tell you flat out and tell you straight, you're not as good at it as you think. From the customer's perspective, I guarantee you that they think that putting that information into the system is more important than they are. They're not going to feel like that you're important to them, and that really hurts from the credibility and trust perspective. And you're really not having the meaningful kind of conversation and listening to be able to discover the needs and problems that will help you present a very effective menu, especially the preferred option. So if you're going to start evaluating process, start by evaluating your F&I process. It's a great place to start. The other place to maybe look at your process is in your menu, how you create it and how you present it. You know, check to ensure that at least one option, that preferred option, is based on at least one of the customer's needs that you discovered. It'll make a difference. You know, obviously it can't happen if you're not doing the interview, and I guess I'll get off that soapbox. But you can see how things can cascade down and start getting out of control if that first most important step isn't done. You know, be sure your menu's presented with a features only, no selling. It's tempting to get into the selling piece, but that will severely limit your results as well. You know, if your menu presentation is taking longer than maybe 3 or 4 minutes, chances are you're off process and you're starting to sell as you go. And we don't want to do that because it really only brings an average or below average result, and it really will get nowhere near the benchmark results we know that the process as taught will produce. You know, a preferred option menu based on need goes a long way to create an environment where, you know, you can present the benefits of your products to fulfill the needs and solve their problems, and where you can address the customer's concern and objections by repurposing their words and applying logic instead of pressure. Let's talk about administrative for a minute. You know, the old adage of touching a deal once in F&I really kind of addresses the importance of a sound, efficient F&I administrative process. So, some of the areas of process for you to consider are, you know, how are your deals submitted? Who's doing it in your store? If you're doing it, make sure that you're looking at your lenders and trying to match the lenders with the customer to assure the highest probability of an approval. If your sales managers are submitting deals, you know, teach them how to do it properly. Get them to understand how to read a credit bureau and really analyze the deal a little bit more before they shotgun if they're doing that in your store. If they are, teach them, you know, how to do it a little bit better. That's one thing you can do. Be a master of your technology. Make sure that's not slowing you down. It can be frustrating with double and triple entry, but you need to be the master of your technology. Next is breaking down deals a little bit. What I mean by that is when you're working in F&I, what's your process when you're working with your paperwork? Are you building a deal and presenting the paperwork for customer fulfillment in a way that separates those into certain areas so that when you're breaking the deal down, you can be more efficient about it? And it also limits any mistakes that you can make because you're constantly checking and cross-checking. CITs. You know, it's great if you're a producer and you can, you know, turn good numbers. But if you're a CIT person and you have a lot of contracts in transit, that's a problem. Now there are stores out there that do some kind of questionable things where they have a spot everybody mentality and, you know, and sometimes even spotting secondary or subprime deals and then trying to clean it all up afterwards. And that can be a little bit of a problem. So we want to make sure that they understand what that causes. We want to be able to delegate responsibilities for those decisions to the proper owner and make sure that it's a group effort to get those types of bad decisions cleaned up in a timely manner. Use checklists. If you're not using checklists, make sure you do. Certainly for all of your processes in F&I, customer checklists, paperwork, funding, those types of things. If your desk needs a little help on getting deals to you in a clean and organized manner, maybe suggest them use a checklist and provide one to them. A good place to find out how you're doing, like I had mentioned earlier, is talking to your accounting department and finding out what they think of you or where they see areas that you might be able to improve. All right. And then lastly is your office. How does it look like? Take a look at it from, customer's eyes. Is it organized? Is it neat? Do you have your paperwork organized in a way that makes it easy to work with, to limit your mistakes or errors? And what is the customer's, what do they see? Because they're going to be making an impression of you based on what your office looks like. Let's keep moving. Let's talk about professional development. Average performance in F&I, isn't something that we should be satisfied with or tolerate. Yet as managers in F&I, and individuals, we kind of tolerate, a lot of us tolerate it every day. We've all known or maybe experienced that F&I managers who's been at it for 15 or 20 years, but they've been at about the same PVR and PPR for most of that time. They're solid people. They're always in the middle of the pack. They consistently are average at performance, and that comes from applying 1 or 2 years of professional development to a career. Completely avoidable. It's a shame, really. I had a guy in our recent five-day F&I certification course, and it was interesting. We were going around kind of introducing ourselves and talking about why we were there, and he'd been in F&I for 14 years. And he said the reason he wanted to come back was that he wanted to come back and see what might be new and to recharge his battery. And I thought, good for him, but what could he have accomplished in those last 14 years if he had started his career with some short-term and long-term goals? Just think of the possibilities. If he had been working from a professional development plan based on knowledge and the skills he needed to learn or master, to achieve the goals he set, where could he be today? One of the things that I see from a professional development standpoint is that in F&I, we get stuck kind of working off an objective. And if you don't have personal and professional goals, it's a great place to start because everything then comes out of those goals. And you start evaluating what you can do well and what you need work on, and you're constantly driving to achieve goals. Without professional and personal goals, we can never really realize our potential. And without goals and a plan to achieve them, we kind of get stuck in the swirl of the day in F&I. And just like that, years can go by. Now, a couple of things that you might want to do. Do you require training for yourself, or is it required in your store? Are you interacting with whoever your supervisor is? Are they giving you an evaluation on your performance? Are you sharing your goals with them so that they can help you stay accountable to those goals? If you're an F&I director, are you working and developing the people that you're responsible for? Are you evaluating their performance and helping them get better at what they do by identifying areas of opportunity? Here's the thing about it. I've just kind of give you a couple of ideas of what you can do from a professional development perspective, but we're in a 30-day cycle in this industry, and everybody's focused on the right now and how we're going to end up at the month. When it comes to professional development, it's smart and wise to invest in yourself because the reality of our industry is, there are some dealerships that do this very well, but many don't. And what I mean is if you don't invest in yourself, chances are nobody else will. So, considering what we've talked about here, you've got some processes that I want you to think about and evaluate. They are your daily routines, customer interactions, your administrative process, and your professional development process. And finally, I'm going to leave you with something that I just talked about with somebody, and I thought it was kind of interesting and kind of applies to what we're talking about today. I had somebody ask me, what do you think would produce a better result in F&I? A new person with a strong will to succeed, or somebody with years of experience who's kind of set in their ways? And before I answered the question, the response is, tell me about their processes. Because it can really make a huge difference if you're new to F&I, having a discipline to process can bring you better results faster. If you've been in F&I a long time and you know that the processes you have bring you a result that you like and are satisfied with, then be disciplined and stay with them. Don't give them up. Don't let others influence you. Don't let others get you off the process because you're busy or there's one waiting or two waiting and they're telling you to hurry up and skip steps in your process. Because we all know when we do that, we don't get the result that we're looking for. So that's our webinar for today. If anybody has any questions or comments, now would be a great time to ask them. And I usually... Anybody? Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. If you'd like a transcript or a copy of today's webinar, feel free to email me at jtaber@udsdealerservices.com. I appreciate your attention today. Everybody have a great afternoon. Talk to you next time.